Thank you everyone for coming to the weekly weather briefing. Today we have Michael Spagnolo and Paul Mykolajtchuk from the Penn State Campus Weather Service, and they'll be talking about current conditions and the forecast, and especially this weekend's game forecast. Thank you.
As you can see, lots of exciting weather happening across the lower 48 today. All sorts of good stuff. I think there's some flood warnings in Missouri and some coastal flood advisories in Texas, small craft off the East Coast, but other than that, pretty tranquil. I guess I shouldn't leave out Hawaii. There is flash flood warnings right now for downtown Honolulu, so the exception of Hawaii, it's definitely quiet. So for those of you that did not know, we revamped the Campus Weather Service website, and this launched over the summer. So it's now mobile friendly. We were having trouble making any modifications to the older website because it was getting dated. So it's now all in WordPress, and Steve Hallett was working on designing this. So it's about 98% complete. We still tweak a few things from day to day. So I just wanted to mention that if you didn't know, it's now mobile friendly. It looks much nicer on your cell phone. So starting off with what we had yesterday, just a little bit of precip. It was a little bit of rain. I also do apologize. I have not been here. I was in Norfolk, Virginia at the NWA conference, so I did not see any of the weather you guys have had the last week or so. Here you did get a little bit of rain yesterday, so temperatures in the mid-80s. A bit cooler now that cold front has come through. It has been dry, so on Thursdays every week, the drought monitor gets updated. So this was last week's map, and this morning's map definitely enhances the drought across the Northeast. We've had no changes for about 2 to 3 weeks here in the heart of central Pennsylvania. You can see the moderate to severe drought has not changed for us. But they've tweaked the lines of the abnormally dry across Pennsylvania. But the big story is now the expansion of the extreme drought in parts of New England. So this drought looks like into the longer range it's probably going to continue. At least it's not going to be any improvements anytime soon. But we'll see how much rain we can squeak out this weekend to see if we can prevent these numbers from getting any worse into next week. Visible satellite shows some valley fog this morning, especially across north central Pennsylvania. That is burned off. They got down into the middle 40s, I believe. And beautiful day out there. Some high clouds to the south and some more to the southwest that'll be slowly working their way in over the course of the afternoon. You can see some of those out on the horizon. Currently into the upper 60s, and we'll be warming up. We're warming up quite nicely. We started this morning at about 55, middle 50s. A little gusty on the coast, which I guess now is Tropical Depression Julia, stationed off the coast. The windiest conditions probably more associated with the front that has slipped through in the northeast flow across the eastern shore. You can see a gust there to 26 at, I believe that's that Chickateague there. And along the coast, there's a gust to 18 down in Wilmington. A little bit of breezy, some precip directly along the coast, but cloud cover and some fog. Maybe some rain showers this afternoon with that front that is now squeezed by to our south. And on radar, I guess now we got a flash flood warning southeastern South Dakota. So something is happening here in the Great Plains. There is an outlook for severe weather. The forecasting city for the forecasting class this morning was Norfolk, Nebraska. So that's where I'll be watching this afternoon to see what type of storms form, to see how much precipitation they got. I think the temperature and wind forecast was a bit easy, but a little bit spread on my numbers for precipitation of how much convection they're going to get and how much is going to fire to their east or if it's going to be out to their west. But so there had some rain this morning, and that is with the storm system, a low pressure system pulling out to the north and east. I showed you guys the plane map here. There's the radar in Hawaii. You can see they've getting good moisture flow. Some of the heavy precip over here in Honolulu, where they do currently have the flash flood warnings. I think they've got over 4 inches of rain so far, and it's still piling up there, about rates of 2 inches an hour on the eastern side of the island. There's a surface map, so there's that cold front that's now stretching through Virginia. Tropical storm Ian quickly pulling away to the north and east. That'll be going through the post-tropical to tropical transition rather soon. There's Julia hanging out. I don't think we really quite have an idea of what it's going to do. We just kind of have to watch and see as it meanders around. I'll show you the track of that in a moment. Real quick, there is the outlook for the severe weather in the plains today. A slight risk. I know they had talked of potentially an enhanced risk because of the wind threat, but I don't believe it looks like they're going to be issuing that any longer. And then the convection outlook, I guess this is Saturday, so we're back in the general thunderstorm forecast, and Paul will be talking about the forecast for the game, as that will be our next frontal passage. Flash flooding threat, a slight also in the Great Plains, but I did just want to show is that does shift east. Currently, for western Pennsylvania, a marginal risk because of course, with just any general convection, we do have the risk of some heavy rainfall. But again, it looks like that will stay west of here for a good part of the day. So the Atlantic is, of course, just past peak hurricane season, getting a little bit interesting. Nothing that's really too noteworthy or anything we're worried about having severe impacts from here in the United States. I'm actually going to use tropical tidbits to show off each storm. So tropical depression 12, we'll start with that. Of course, that link's not going to work, but you can see it there, well-defined circulation. It has a lot of dry air. It's expected to meander, or it won't meander. It's going to expect it to travel due west as it heads towards the Lesser Antilles. Here's the track. Not expected to do any major strengthening because of the dry air that's nearby. The environment's just not too favorable. Maybe down the line, if it can hold together as a depression for a good couple of days, we'll have to keep an eye on that as it tracks towards the Lesser Antilles. Tropical storm Ian also not impacting land at the moment, going through into the North Atlantic now. Still has a little bit of convection left at the core, but it is also beginning to get sheared apart, and again, as I mentioned, making its transition soon. Quick look at the track as it pulls off into the colder waters of the Northern Atlantic. And then last but not least, we have Tropical Depression Julia, which did form the other day, actually onshore on the coast of Georgia, where there were tropical storm warnings and some tropical storm conditions with the winds, I believe, were measured there. But you can see the circulation, it reformed off the South Carolina coast and is now moved off to the south and east. And still quite a bit of convection with it, but it is being sheared pretty well. All the convection you can see is to the east, which is good because, of course, the land is on the west side. So just a few precip bands have made it into Wilmington, which was still reporting some rainfall. But this is at least going to hang out off the coast for a couple of days. This track has been a circle, and it's been kind of shifting around where they thought it was just going to meander over land, but now it's going to hang on over water. So the environment not very conducive for development because of the shear and the close proximity of that dry air with that cold front, but we'll have to see if it brings any impacts a couple days down the line if it's still spinning off of, or spinning over the Gulf Stream there. And we have the two invests. I know there's an invest going to be coming off the coast of Africa, but of course that's a long way out. And there was an invest in the Gulf of Mexico. I'm not sure. I guess this might not even be declared an invest anymore. Not really a threat to anything. I did want to show this video. This was from the typhoon in Taiwan. This is a pool apparently on the 40th story of a skyscraper in one of the towns in southern Taiwan. And the pool, those waves are a result of the building shaking from the wind. So the building is swaying due to the strong winds. And can imagine how much that building must be swaying in order for the water to be moving around like that. So I would not be on the 40th floor of that building. But I thought it was a pretty remarkable video showing how strong the winds were. And a pretty big typhoon. It has now dissipated as it moved itself inland to China. So does anyone have any questions, comments, anything they want to see as far as current conditions go? Otherwise, I'll turn it over to Paul to talk a little bit about the model forecast for this upcoming weekend. Yes. Well, here you can see the dew point plunge we had yesterday. So you might have definitely noticed a little bit of humidity the last 2 days with dew points in the afternoon getting the middle 60s. Not as bad as last weekend where we were definitely humid into the lower 70s, but that front came through. Dew points are now into the middle 40s, and that was where they bottomed out. The temperatures bottomed out in north central Pennsylvania. Let's see. So dew point at UNV is the airport at 52, still in the lower 40s. So this will be a much drier air mass. Even all the way down into Virginia, you've got the upper 50s and middle 60s. So that air mass that we had is now well south. Dew points have definitely dropped, so very comfortable out there.
Okay, hi everyone. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Paul Mykolajtchuk. I'm the head of forecasting with the Penn State Campus Weather Service, and we're going to do a little bit of forecasting here. So the first thing I want to take a look at is the European model centered over the Northeast. We're going to really be specifically focusing on the any sort of game impacts from this frontal system that will be coming in from the northwest. So This is valid at 0Z on Saturday, a 48-hour forecast from the 0Z European. And so this 0Z forecast is valid at 8 p.m. on a Friday evening. But as we advance forward, you can see we do have that system off to the west there, that frontal boundary. And by the time 18Z on Saturday rolls around, you can see that front is trying to work its way in, but doesn't quite make it. And that seems to be a general trend with all the modeling guidance right now, is that if we look at the SREF plumes, they kind of have shown the same thing. If we look at the Deep Frog DT for PSB, the station that's closest to State College on these plume maps here, you'll see that there is the tendency for the precipitation to be shifted further back in time. So this right here, this red line was the 15Z SREF ensemble forecast. That was yesterday's forecast. You can see it had the rain actually kind of moving in a little bit earlier, had it moving in right about game time here. But now, notice the most recent run is actually starting to shift the rain a little bit further down the road here, more towards Sunday. This is also consistent with the GEFS forecast for State College. You can see it's basically keeping us dry here for game time. The majority of the rain comes later on Saturday evening into early on Sunday. You can see the mean is painting a picture right around maybe a ½ inch of rain for Sunday. And you can see if we go back to the European model, there's a lot of rain for south central Pennsylvania. You can see it's actually printing out a lollipop of around maybe close to an inch or so of precipitation in about 6 hours. So that would probably limit the daytime highs on Sunday, if this were to be correct on the European here as a result of all the precipitation and cloud cover currently taking place. Let's also take a look at the GFS, just for comparison, to see how that relates to the European model. And we can see that once we go to Northeast here, this is the most recent GFS run, by the way. This is the 12Z GFS. So this is valid 6Z on Saturday, so early in the morning. There is 12Z on Saturday right here. And once we go to 18Z on Saturday, that's during the game. You can see we're still in the clear here in State College. So while there was a threat for rain earlier on in the week, that threat seems to have diminished as the rain looks to be coming in later on Sunday as opposed to Saturday. And it does look like there will be a chance for State College to get a good amount of rain, possibly helping out the drought situation that Michael was mentioning earlier. And the GFS does bring that rain in. Really brings it in here in State College around 18Z. This isn't really that heavy compared to the European. The European was really more focused on a lot of rain down here. The GFS is less enthused with precipitation amounts. But again, if you look at the GEFS plumes here, you can see that we do have a mean right around a ½ inch for State College. Now, quickly taking a look at the NAM here. On the EWAL website, the latest 12Z NAM. Let's take a look at the 15 panel maps actually. So we can see here comes the disturbance right here as indicated by the higher relative humidities and the precipitation maps here. You can see as we go to Saturday, this is 12Z on Saturday. The dew points are still hanging in there a little bit on the low side still for Saturday. But they do increase throughout the day, and precipitation is on our doorstep. This is again at 18Z right here is what we want to look at for 3 hourly precipitation. This is at 18Z on Saturday. You can see that the precipitation is relatively close to State College though, right at 2 p.m. The 3-hour accumulated precipitation ending at 2 p.m. On Saturday. You can see is very close to the State College area. So it still definitely bears watching, but as of now, it does appear as if the rain will hold off for the most part for the game. So I'd say a reasonable forecast at this point is for mostly cloudy skies for the game. You can see the NAM is printing out a lot of clouds for the game with a chance of maybe a sprinkle or a shower toward the tail end of the game. Again, it also depends on how long the game lasts for as well. You can see the NAM does bring the rain in. This is on 21Z on Saturdays. This is right as the game is ending. The NAM is starting to bring in precipitation into the State College area. The rain really moves in, though. The NAM actually really doesn't have that much rain for the State College area on Sunday, which is interesting because that's a bit of a difference from the global models, which do have the best rain moving into the State College area. For Sunday, you can see most of that actually misses to the north, and the predominant rain is actually further south. We do get a little bit of rain on the NAM for Sunday, which does keep the temperatures down a little bit. But I would imagine that if a scenario like the European were to happen, where you're dealing with constant rain throughout the day on Sunday, your temperatures are liable to be quite a bit lower than forecast as a result of that particular system moving in. So I also want to take a look at tropical tidbits, the forecast for the tropics. And so there's actually a few systems that we're watching in the Atlantic, as Michael also alluded to. We're also watching a typhoon in the Western Pacific right here, right there. I'm not sure exactly how to pronounce the name of this system. It's another M system. The system that went into southern Taiwan and into China, this system is actually already starting to weaken very rapidly. The same system that produced all that swaying for that Taiwanese building that Michael was showing before. So we're actually going to take a look at the European model here. So there's this typhoon, and it's worth noting that this typhoon, where this typhoon goes, because there's the potential that this will come very, very close to Taiwan once again. The European is printing a pressure of 975 millibars, only really 25 or so miles east of Taiwan. The good news for Taiwan, though, is that you have the strongest winds and precipitation are on the right front quadrant, and that looks to stay offshore. Nonetheless, most of the population in Taiwan is actually located on the northern side, so this is a poor scenario for the Taiwanese people who just got hit with a typhoon. They're going to get hit with another typhoon. Dr. Neese. Malacus, okay. This is Typhoon Malacus. Malacus is supposed to strengthen, actually. The European has this deepening. Looks like that's a 956. That's heading toward southern Japan there. And it actually does make landfall in Japan. This is getting a little far out. This is 120 hours, so of course there's subject to uncertainty, but once again, it looks like as if we have to keep an eye on this, monitor the prospects, any interests in southern Japan and in northern Taiwan should keep very close tabs on this system, as there is the potential for this to be a significant weather event once again for the West Pacific. So going to the Atlantic, as Michael was mentioning, we have a system in the Atlantic, Tropical Depression 12. Right now it's very weak and not really forecast to get much stronger. So we're going to quickly take a look at the European, what this has for Tropical Depression 12. So there it is right there. There's Ian, there's Julia, right off the coast of South Carolina there. As we advance in time, you can see there's the Tropical Depression. The European doesn't really have much strengthening. In fact, it actually weakens the Tropical Depression as we go out in time. And this is getting very far out in time, but just to kind of hint at the long-term possible prospects of the system, it does have the system still kind of meandering in this general area by the end of the European run. So this, assuming the wave does survive the shear that it's currently being impacted with right now, there's the potential that this could be a very, very long-term threat. But of course, it's very far out, and there's a chance it might not even survive. So this is looking way far out. But this is really the one system that bears watching at this particular point, as it could provide a long-term threat down the road. I also want to take a look at the long-term pattern that we're going to be facing here in State College. So we're going to look at the GEFS mid-range ensemble forecast page here on eWall. And so looking at the overall hemispheric pattern, we've had this persistent pattern of this cold polar vortex lobe over the Arctic basin throughout most of the summer, actually. And as a result of that, we've had a lot of ridging over the east. You can see that ridging is still persisting over the next several days, even though temperature-wise we're probably going to be cooling it down relative to where we were last week. we're still going to be facing this persistent upper-level ridging. And we do get periods of troughiness that do come into the east, but the ridge is very quick to reassert its dominance over the eastern part of the United States by the time day 8 rolls around, by the time next Friday rolls around. So again, we're getting out further in time here, but this is just a general sense that we're probably going to be dealing with this ridging, this upper-level ridge pattern over the east over the next couple of weeks or so. If we go out even further in time here, you can see that we have the ridge that was in place. The GEFS is showing more uncertainty into the forecast. They're actually showing more of a positive Pacific North America pattern here. They're also trying to get rid of this persistent polar vortex lobe here, although this particular ensemble has tried to do that in the past, and instead this pattern has gotten shifted back more and more. So it remains to be seen whether we will be dealing with a situation where this polar vortex lobe decides to move out in the near future or not. But for the next week or so, it does look like as if we will be dealing with a ridge in the east, predominantly. Warm, it should be warm, but it shouldn't be too hot relative to what we've been dealing with over the last couple weeks or so.
Sorry about that. We lost our connection, so it'll take me like a minute here to try and reconnect. Anyone have any questions, comments? Alex.
Do you guys want to comment on August being the warmest on record?
Yeah, so the August, I could bring that up once Michael's finished with this, with reconnecting here. But so it was in the news recently that August 2016 was the warmest August globally on record, going back to, I believe, 136 years of record keeping. And so that, in turn, led to a lot of news articles about it. And so the warmest month on record was actually July, and the warmest absolute month on record, as in, temperature-wise, absolute temperature-wise for the Earth, the July was the warmest on record, followed by August. And if I could quickly pull that up here, I can show you what I'm talking about. So we'll go to the NASA GISS, the Goddard Institute for Space Studies, and we'll quickly take a look at this. And here, the front headline, August 2016 was the warmest August in 136 years of modern record keeping. And so we'll quickly take a look at where it was warm. And so, at this point, we're really struggling to find areas where it's below normal. There's really only a few far in between areas that are below normal relative to above normal. In fact, this is large, very, very large numbers of oranges and reds relative to these blues here. So for the month of August, you really had to nitpick to find these blue areas relative to the 1951 to 1980 baseline. Of course, the block we use right now is the 1981 to 2010 baseline. And that's going to show more cool anomalies, but that's because that average baseline is warmer than the 1951 to 1980 baseline. So yeah, there's August right there with the 1981 to 2010 baseline. And so there's a really cool graphic that NASA put out, this one right here. So it includes the seasonal cycle. So Earth is actually usually a little bit warmer during the summer months as a result of Northern Hemisphere having more land. Land heats up more than the ocean, so the Earth is typically a little bit warmer during the Northern Hemispheric summer than it is during the Northern Hemispheric winter. And you see, basically tied July as the hottest month on record for the Earth. And so you can see these black dots here indicate 2016. We've been the warmest month since 2016 began. You can see as we go further out, though, right here, this is actually 2015 right here, this red line that kind of departs from the main pack of lines here. And so it's going to be harder, I think, for 2016. It keeps shattering records as a result of El Nino kind of fading away, becoming more of a neutral state as we go later into the year. And there is also another graphic I thought here. Let me quickly take a look at this. See if I can find this loop here. Okay, so there's a graphic that I was trying to find that kind of showed the years kind of adding up on each other and showing just how far from the average 2016 was compared to the rest of the years. But yeah, it was the warmest month on record for August, and it tied for the warmest month ever on record. Any other questions? Yes? So that's a really interesting question, and so I've been taking a look into it a little bit. I really haven't gotten much in depth into it. Let me quickly go to this ocean page here, and we can quickly take a look at the sea surface temperatures. The last I looked, we had a very, very warm northern Pacific. Okay, that's still there. So here's the current sea surface temperature anomaly for the globe. You can see that we kind of do have what looks to be a weak La Nina, though it's not officially a weak La Nina. In fact, the CPC has actually canceled its La Nina watch. They're now favoring a neutral El Nino period to occur during the winter months. But you can see there is a little bit of cool water relative to average over the western tropical Pacific. You can see it's not really much of a dominant factor, and it could be right now. I would say the most likely outcome for the winter is a cool neutral or a weak La Nina to take place. The only really other thing I've been taking a look at has been the warm sea surface temperatures, really just south of Alaska here. We kind of saw this same thing occur in the winter of 2013-2014. And this sea surface temperature pattern did lead to a very strong area of high pressure right over Alaska, and that in turn gave a very cold winter. Not saying that's the forecast, but right now, you know, it's just these kind of signals that we're picking out right now, and it's still very early, and that's assuming that this lasts, you know, into the winter months compared to where it is right now.
Any final quick questions for Paul or Michael? All right, thank you, both of you. Next week we have Charles Ross, the hydrologist from the National Weather Service, and he'll be talking also about the upcoming winter, what we can expect precipitation-wise around the area. Thank you, Michael and Paul.